Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the spring meeting of the CMERA. Let me put the agenda up on the board, just to give an idea of what we're going to be doing. Next slide. So basically, we're going to, we'll call the meeting to order, which we have now done. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, some introductions. We're going to go through some officers' reports, and when that's finished, we're going to talk a little bit about the new Cincinnati Futures Commission, and that'll be followed by some questions and answers, or hopefully answers, but at least we'll have some discussion. And then if you got your pen and pencil out, don't forget the next meeting is October the 12th here, so same time and so forth. So let's go on to, let's start first of all with the Pledge of Allegiance, since we're here. And we have a new flag too, so we retired the old one, we have now one we can see. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. And before we get started, too, I also just want to take a few seconds to remember those who are those retired employees who are no longer with us. So we'll just bow our heads and think of a few minutes or a few seconds. All right, thank you. Anyone here, is this their first meeting for anyone? First in-person meeting? Got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we've got 150 people. No, I'm sorry, my glasses are bad. Anyway, glad to see you. Welcome. A little bit about, next slide. Brief history about CMERA. It's founded in 1980. We are a for real, not-for-profit organization certified by the Internal Revenue Service. We are comprised of both active members and associate members. Active members are people who pay their dues, get the newsletter, can vote and hold offices and so forth. But anyone who is a retired member of the Cincinnati retirement system is considered a member of CMERA. So regardless of your status as active or associate, we welcome you today. Next slide. The mission of CMERA is basically, it hasn't changed recently, and we're still advocating for the interests of retirees. We do that by offering information and education, by partnering with the Cincinnati Retirement System Board of Trustees and the Cincinnati Retirement System Administration and others. And of course, the other thing we do is to monitor the implementation of the collaborative settlement agreement that was effective in 2016. Next slide. The CMERA has a governing board, which is comprised of the executive committee, directors, and associate directors. Next slide. The executive committee is myself, the president, Chuck Cullen, the vice president and acting treasurer, Steve Dietrich, who's there, our secretary, Jane Kettlehack, did she come in yet? She's probably still out there at the desk. Our past president, Tom Gamble, who would be here today, was a little bit under the weather, so he's unable to make it. And our sergeant at arms, Kathy Ratz, which is here in front. So those are the people who comprise the executive committee. Moving on, we have directors, Kathy Cordes, John Hines. I know John is here. Mark Jones is not here today. And we have associate directors, Andy Groot, Barb Laxton, and Barry Molman. So next. I want to just thank people, particularly the members of the executive board who assist me a great deal in not only just with our meetings, but also making sure that our organization runs smoothly. All the directors and associate directors, Don Hutchins, Don's over there. He does a lot of the background work as far as keeping track of our database and so forth. I want to thank the people who were out the front desk this morning helping out. And I also want to thank the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati for allowing us to be here in this beautiful building this morning and assisting us with the audio and video components here today. All right. So let me move on a little bit about what I wanted to speak of. And the first thing, as far as my report, I wanted to kind of stress that one of my main things I wanted to focus on this year, first year as president, is communication. The first thing I did when I started was to start putting in on our website every month. Towards the beginning of the month, I post something called the CMERA Chronicles, which is basically kind of an off-the-cuff commentary about the state of the world, state of my mind, sometimes what's going on at City Hall, as far as I know, the retirement system itself might be something important that you need to know, and so forth. But that's something new that I've started just to open the lines of communication between the members of CMERA and the governing board. The other thing is I wanted to talk about, and I will talk about a little later, about the Cincinnati Futures Commission. It's something that came up recently. You may have heard about it. It's one of those reports that we don't know what's going to happen yet with it, but it's something that we have to keep an eye on. It's something that we have to monitor closely, and we have to be ready to act upon it when necessary, if it becomes necessary. The other thing I'm looking at right now is updating some of the content of our website. We have some of the policies that we have in there that were updated a year or so ago. I need to get into the website and get that updated. So those are some of the things related to communication. Monitoring the the Collaborative Settlement Agreement and the Cincinnati Futures Report. The other thing that I'm trying to focus my time on. I recently, with the release of the Futures Report, I wrote to the mayor explaining, how is this going to be handled, who's going to look at it, who's going to make the decisions. That was followed up a few days later by a presentation, myself, I think Steve and Kathy, I think Jane was with us. We went down to City Council and made a presentation to the mayor and the council members, reminding them that retirees have already contributed or made substantial cuts in their benefits and pension over the years, with the Cincinnati Collaborative Settlement. Collaborative Settlement Agreement. Too many letters in these things. And remind them that I think enough is enough. So if they're thinking about doing something else, that they should remember that there is an agreement already that's been approved by the courts, and hopefully that they will remember that. But we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentations here. The other thing I want to talk about is some of the things that we have accomplished in the last few months. Is we've updated how we keep our records. We now have a method to better protect some of the, just our financial records, our information records, our database on members. And so we now, as I said, we now have an improved system now to keep that secured in a much better way. The other thing that we did that was different is that last year in past years, we have to file, like everyone else, tax reports, at least filings with both with the federal government and with the state. We've been paying an accountant to do that in the past, Looking at those reports last year and seeing what needs to be done on those reports, the federal report was very simple. It's literally a postcard. And it says, you know, do you make X amount of dollars? And we say no. And then say, okay. And then, but the state wants a lot of information about the organization and so forth. But we decided that we could do that ourselves in-house this year and bypass the accountant and his or her fees. So that's what we did. So we were able to do our tax reports this year at no cost to our members. Steve and I sat down on a computer and we winged it as we normally do, and we got it done. So we saved a few $100s, which is, as I said, is not the end of the world, but it's $200 that we don't have to worry about now because we did it ourselves. Let's see, I think that's about it for me that I want to update now. I'll be talking a little bit later about the futures report, but for right now I want to turn it over to Steve, our Vice President and Acting Treasurer, and then he will give you an opportunity to volunteer to be the new treasurer, and so we hope you take advantage of that. So Steve, why don't you be my guest and come on up.
Good morning, everybody. I'm wearing two hats, as Chuck said. Right now, I'm the vice president and the interim treasurer. And if I could have the next slide, please. And as you'll notice, there's only one bullet point on my slide because that's the thing I want to talk about. So, you know, if you or you know somebody, another retiree, or you know someone that may be retiring in the near future, in that we could really use your help. You know, not only do we have the treasurer position open, but you know, we can use people to be on committees. You know, we have several committees and communications and other things, even helping do the registration before the meetings. So, you know, if you or you know somebody that's going to be retiring shortly, get involved. You don't have to jump in over your head right away. You can take your time doing that. You know, the organization's been in existence now for, what is it, like 44 years. And I really feel that CMERA is a conduit for, you know, because some of our members are on the board of trustees for the retirement system. Some of our members are plaintiffs in the lawsuit that led to the collaborative settlement agreement. And CMERA is sort of a good conduit for those groups talking together. Also, we have, you know, keep in contact with the actives. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, this is just a quick sort of what's going on. You can see this is our revenue expenses for calendar year 22 and 23. In 22, we spent more money than we had. We had some expenses that year. Last year, we actually had a $1,400 surplus. And could I have the next slide, please? This is this year's budget. So our budget for this year, for calendar year 2024, is $8,900. And I think it's really interesting where that money's coming from. The dues actually, they haven't went up for, I think, before this century started, back in it was in the 90s. Dues cover about 72% of our expenses. Donations are 20%, so that's a significant amount. And a couple years ago, Chuck got us involved in the Kroger's rewards program, and that right now is it goes up a little bit. We get a check every quarter. It goes up each quarter. I guess is either you guys are eating better or we're getting new members, and it's about $600 a year. So that is not insignificant, and we get a little bit from interest in that. I think an important thing to point out here is if it wasn't for the donations of our generous members, we would not be able to meet our budget. So that's really nice. Thank you. Next slide, please. So you have the 8,900. When you get your newsletter, Chuck had done a really nice pie chart graph in there that sort of showed where your dollars were going. And the majority, about 90% of the money that we spend goes for the meeting costs, for the rental of this beautiful venue that we're at today, for the donuts and coffee, the 2 newsletters that we put out per year, and the postage for those newsletters, and also our insurance. And then, so that's like 90% of what we spend. And then we have some other expenses like post office boxes and things like that. So next slide, please. I think this is just an interesting slide. Again, Chuck did this, and it just shows where all our money's going. And basically, it's insurance, meetings, and newsletters. Next slide, please. I just want to mention this again. If you are not a Kroger's Rewards member, we have applications out at the registration desk. Please take one. This is a no-cost thing to you. It's not like you're rounding up when you use it, and it's not like you're at the cash register at Kroger's, you're doing a donation. Kroger's just basically, for every dollar you spend, they put so much money away for that. So please, if you're not doing it, grab a application at the desk. If you got a friend that, anybody can do it. So that would be really nice. Like I said, this was generating about $600 a year currently. And that's my treasurer's report. I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Rotz now.
Good morning. Thanks, Steve. If I could have a slide, please. I'm not going to actually give a big, long report today. You'll be happy to hear. First thing I want to talk about is communications, and all I really want to do is emphasize what Chuck was saying, that is a big priority for us, for him, and for the rest of the executive team this year. I just kind of listed a few sort of avenues of communication that we have existing. So we do have our website, and like Chuck said, it needs updating for sure. And somebody actually reminded me this morning that we didn't even have our meeting notice on the web page for this meeting today. So it has fallen from priorities. We're putting it right back on, and we're going to revamp that. We can always use help. Anybody who would be the least bit interested in spending a little time helping us upgrade and improve, talk to me, because I'd be glad to talk to you about that. The next thing I have there is the CMERAgroups.io. Whoops, not quite. Could you go back? Thanks, Tim. So what that is our email forum. If you've been in CMERA for a while, you may remember CMERA QT. And what that was just a discussion forum by way of email. This works pretty much exactly the same. And we have, I guess, 800 or 900 active members in CMERA, meaning paid members. What we have with the groups discussion is a little bit less than 200 people. So we really don't have a majority of CMERA members. We'd like to expand our membership on that discussion forum. I will say you don't have to receive every single email. There are options when you subscribe to there are options to opt for, say, just a summary or a digest of the posts on there. And you also will notice if you subscribe that it's quiet for many weeks or months sometimes, and then there's a flurry of communications. It's very sporadic, but it is very interesting. You hear a lot of what other people are thinking if you subscribe to that. Again, you can talk to me about that, or there's a sign up on our website for that too. Our meetings and our newsletters, of course, are other means of communication. You can see today we have a decent turnout, but it's not great. You know, it rained a little bit. People probably thought, oh, I'm not going to get up. So we communicate at our meetings, but it's not the best universal way to reach people. Similar with the newsletters, you know, we do spend quite a lot of time and money on our newsletters, and we do send them to as many active members as we can. We've talked about trying to email newsletters. At this point, we haven't gone forward with that. If you don't have your email address updated, we'd appreciate it, though, if you would update it before you leave. We don't sell lists of email addresses or do any other thing other than for use of CMERA information. Next slide, please. Oh, one thing that we will be doing, you can look for, is to be the ability to pay online. So what we're going to do is use PayPal for that purpose, and you can pay a one-time payment of your dues, or you can subscribe so that your dues automatically renew. You can look for that in the next few months. Yeah, more info on that coming. Next slide. So I want to mention this, the Retirement Board of Trustees. So retirees have 3 trustee slots on the Retirement Board. We serve 4-year terms. I'm a board member. Tom Gamble is a board member, and CMERA member Bill Moeller is also a board member and chairman of the board. 2 of these 3 slots are up for re-election this summer. The nominations are not open yet, otherwise we'd be asking you to sign nominating petitions today. But those will open soon, and so look for a request coming out from CMERA to sign a nominating petition. Each candidate needs 25 signatures, so it's not, if you don't hear from us, it's because we've got our 25 signatures, but I believe, Bill, I didn't check with you. Do you intend to run again or have you not decided? So far, so good. Okay. And I do know Tom, I confirmed with him that he does intend to run for re-election. If you feel like you'd like to serve on the board, by all means, you know, CMERA is not in the way of anybody, not wanting to get in the way of anybody who wishes to serve. But I can tell you that Tom and Bill have done quite a dedicated job of serving as trustees. With these, just one other thing to mention, the petitions, they actually are paper petitions, but they can be transmitted and scanned and transmitted by email, both to the candidate who's looking for your signature, and the candidate can transmit that to the city that way. So electronic is okay. Is what I'm saying. Next slide, please. Okay, a quick mention of the Futures Commission and City Council. I'm not going to belabor it. Chuck is going to go into a lot more elaboration about all of this. All I want to do is to point out that CMERA, your group, provided an immediate response to that, to the publication of the report. And Chuck already described his presentation. The other thing I want to mention is, and as Chuck said, it may be that we need, depending on how things develop, we may need to make our position known better, we retirees, better known to our elected officials. And so you may remember last year, we asked and got a number of people to talk to council about what would happen to them if their retirement benefits were reduced. So I thought it was very effective and persuasive. Council tends to think of things not as, well, it's easy, I think, for them to think of issues and not of people. And they need to understand that there are real people who are at the bottom of the heap who, with the loss of benefits, could face real hardships. And so if that call does come out for you to come forward and speak to our elected representatives, I hope we can count on you to do so. Next slide. Okay, so this is the part where Tom Gamble was going to speak. He's the past president. Like Chuck said, Tom's a little under the weather today, so he can't be here. And he provided us with what he was going to say. So forgive me, because I really have to just read this, but I will do my best not to stumble through it. So this is Tom's report on the latest happenings of the collaborative settlement agreement. So Judge Barrett has recently approved several items that all parties have been negotiating for some time. First, the proposed revision of the point system for active employees hired by the city after January 9th, 1997. And just to elaborate a little bit, the point system is a method of calculating healthcare premiums. The people who are subject to that are the people who were hired after January 9th of 97. Most of our members are not subject to the point system. But the point system that was negotiated did not come out cost neutral to the pension fund. But retirees will see later, in just a minute, he explains further that we got something out of accepting this that we had never had in the original CSA. Secondly, a payment plan for all the current employee plaintiffs for attorney fees that was stated in the original CSA. So the CSA stated that the current employee plaintiffs would pay back the awarded attorney fees. Did not state what the payment plan was going to be. That was negotiated and accepted by all parties and the judge. So again, many, if not most of our members are not current employee plaintiffs, they're retiree plaintiffs. The current employee plaintiffs, though, we do have some members, including me. And yes, it was always a given in the CSA that we had to pay our attorney fees, and it would be taken out of our pension checks on a monthly basis. The amounts are, I don't know right off the top of my head. Basically, there are two different levels. One is whether you have health insurance, and one is if you don't have health insurance. So those who are eligible for health insurance pay a higher reimbursement to the attorney's fees. Okay, third point. We all agreed to a 115 trust fund policy. The 115 trust is the healthcare trust fund. It's almost 9 years late. It was supposed to be done shortly after the CSA was signed, and here we are 9 years later. This is the healthcare funding policy which benefits all retirees, not just the retiree plaintiffs who were pushing for it for the 9-year period. The excuse that we were given was that the fund is in good shape, the healthcare fund, and there's no need for a funding policy. From our perspective, you never know when funding can take a major hit due to changes in the cost of our healthcare program. We made sure that the funding policy stated that the CSA required the city continue to provide retiree healthcare benefits, including but not limited to retiree class healthcare benefits and current employee health class, and their eligible surviving spouses, dependent children, and orphans through the expiration of the CSA in 2045. It went on to say, CSA paragraph 26 required the city to develop a funding policy for the 115 trust fund that will satisfy all consent decree requirements, including but not limited to the city's obligation to fully fund the 115 Trust at actuarially appropriate levels for the term of this agreement. And Tom notes the key here is fully fund, the key phrase. So basically, this requires the city has an obligation to fully fund the healthcare trust through 2045. We agreed to funding triggers through which the city will be required to start putting money into the 115 Trust Fund. At our CRS board meeting, so the retirement board meeting, Chiron, the CRS's actuary, stated that there will be some impacts in the healthcare funding as a result of the elimination of the Inflation Reduction Act. They also stated that there will be some changes coming up due to the drug plan shift cost in 2026. The impact of these two items is unknown at this time. We need to learn more about what all this means to our benefits. It's my understanding that both have to do with drug costs and categorizing drugs. As of December 31st, 2023, our 115 Trust Fund is funded at 139.9% actuary value of assets. As of December 31st, 2023, our pension trust is funded at 68.8% actuary value. Getting back to the CSA, we have several filings that we are waiting for Judge Barrett to respond to concerning the city changing our healthcare benefits when they put us in a Medicare Advantage program without negotiating the change. Drug issues that we have that do not include drugs we had on the list approved by the CSA. And IRMA, which is an additional charge, it's basically an additional tax for healthcare costs that was not in existence before the city changed our drug plan. Additionally, we will be addressing the DROP program that is costing the system money. According to the CSA, DROP should be cost neutral. And that concludes Tom's presentation and mine. Thank you.
I'm back, as promised. Okay, there's a couple comments. You know, it's kind of a shame that, first of all, that we had to come up with the Cincinnati, collaborative settlement agreement to maintain some of our dignity when it comes to our pension and benefits. And even if that was approved, started in January of 2016, here it is, May of 2024. Not all those issues are totally settled yet. It boggles my mind sometimes, but hopefully, you know, they have reached some settlement on some of the issues, and they've agreed to continue to work on some of the remaining issues. And just when there was a little bit of, I guess, light shining through with the approval of some of the new issues related to the collaborative settlement agreement, the city comes out with the Cincinnati Futures Report. Now, originally, we were going to have a little presentation today about, I guess, what we call senior scams, things that are out there that people and companies that like to prey on senior citizens using tricks and things like that in order to get your money. However, this all of a sudden comes up, and I think it's a little more important. Not that scamming isn't important, but again, there's a potential here that, once again, pensions and benefits could be impacted depending on what happens with this future report. So I want to spend a little time to tell you, at least from my perspective, what I read into the report, just to make sure that you are aware that it exists and so forth. So let's continue. So what is it? Basically, it's it's what, 76 pages. It's one's group's vision of what Cincinnati should be. It focuses on community insights and priorities and economic agenda, and it also has a financial review that they use. Next slide. Who is on this commission? Okay. I can assure you, I can almost assure you, no one in this room was on that commission, okay? Particularly when they talked about employee benefit or retiree benefits. At least if there was, raise your hand because I'd like to talk to them. But anyway, who was on there was basically representatives from Kroger, TQL, Christ Hospital, Duke Energy, American Financial. You notice these sound like big companies to me? I mean, that's what they are. AFL-CIO Labor Council, Cincinnati Bengals were on this committee. It was headed by the president or the CEO of Procter & Gamble. That's another big company around here. But apparently they said it included some 800 individuals, 70 organizations, and 16 city departments. But again, no retirees that I know of. Next slide. So why was it created? I mean, why come up with this report all of a sudden? Well, apparently this goes back a year or two. The Mayor Purable, decided, was talking to some business people and asked for about an idea of doing a financial study of the city. And the discussion then expanded, and they decided, well, not just look at the finances, let's look at the overall future of the city, about having more housing, more people, more jobs, more business stuff, essentially. So the report took over a year, and it was pretty, let's see, I mean, you didn't see a lot about it, if anything. You know, there wasn't a whole lot printed about it and so forth, but these people put a report together. Go ahead. So their goals was to increase the population of the city, grow jobs, increase wages, more housing, provide better economic equity, and to retain more businesses within the city. Go ahead. So what did they recommend? Well, they made a series of recommendations, not just retirees, and we'll get to that in a second. But they mentioned they wanted to look at police and fire efficiencies. How can they be more efficient in providing service? They wanted to, explore shared services between parks and recreation. They wanted to property that the city owns that isn't being used. They said to sell it. Impose a waste collection fee. Right now, for residents in the city, there is no specific fee to collect your garbage. They're suggesting that there is one, or there should be one. It shouldn't be part of your taxes, it should be extra. They also have recommendations for a couple income tax or earnings tax increases, at least temporarily, to pay for certain services. The other thing, one of the bigger ones, was what they call regionalize, or what I refer to as monetize, the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. Those of you how many used to work for Waterworks? All right, so there's a number there. Well, if you've been with them long enough, you know that some years ago, I think when Dave Rager was in charge, they kind of decided to spread it, or to get more customers for Waterworks. And so they, instead of being the Cincinnati Waterworks, it became the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks in order to get more customers. And then they were able to do that. They were able to expand the amount, places where they put water, including northern Kentucky. Someone said there's a pipe under the suspension bridge area and so forth. So they did that, but now this group has said to regionalize it. But what they want to do really is to monetize it. They want to, I don't care if you can call it leasing. They don't want to necessarily, they don't use the word sell, but they want to have another entity operate it, and that entity would put money up front to give the city to do something with. And what the report is recommending is that that money, which is literally millions of dollars, would be used to mitigate the pension risk, is how they've put it. Next slide. So what is the pension risk? Well, you and I, we are the pension risk. I mean, when it comes down to it. The pension fund at one point was 161%. I mean, they had more than, for every dollar they needed, they had $1.61. So it was in good shape, and it wasn't that long ago, 25 years ago. Since then, partly because of recessions and the city underfunding the pension fund, that's been reduced. We are now somewhere, I think, it's a little 68 now. It's close to 68%. It was 65, so it's gone. It's around 68% now, which means for every dollar they need, they got 68 cents. Well, so that's the pension problem. Okay. Now the collaborative settlement agreement says that by the year 2045, the pension fund should be 100% funded. That's the goal. But the futures report saying, well, that's hindering the city. That pension fund is taking too much money that could be used to retain businesses, to grow jobs, to do this, to do that. So, what do we do with these pensioners? We get rid of them. Yeah. If they can't give us a heart attack and make us die so the pension fund becomes whole, then what they do is, their idea was to transfer the retirement system to OPERS, which is the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System. Now, this is their recommendation, okay? These are business people making a business recommendation, okay? Now, the Ohio Public Employees System, they're not fully funded either. I don't think they're in much better shape than we are as a pension fund. So why would they take us if we're not fully funded? Well, that's where that money from the waterworks would come in. The city would say, hey, you take our retirees, we're going to give you this money, and then, that will help you out, help us out. You scratch my back and I scratch your back. Well, there's a whole lot of, you just don't get rid of waterworks overnight. You just don't get rid of us overnight either. So can the city actually do this? I don't know. Any given Wednesday, council members can do whatever they vote to do. But it's uncertain. As I said, the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System is not fully funded. And, the $520 to $650 million that they could get from waterworks, is that going to help them enough? I don't know. They don't know. They won't say for certain. I don't even know. The report doesn't even say, did they even contact them to see if they would be willing to take us? Because this has been done. This has been attempted before, and it was turned down. Opus didn't want us then. So I don't know. So what happens if council decides in their wisdom, or shall we say unwisdom, to do this, to transfer the city retirees to Opus, and assuming Opus will take us? Well, we don't know. There's no details given in the report. Again, this is just business people saying, hey, it would be nice if we could do this. If we get rid of the employees, we get rid of the pension risk, We can use the money then to make jobs and all this other stuff that they want to do. So there's no mention, really, of what would happen to the employees. There's some language in there about safeguarding, safeguarding against the loss of benefits for employees. Now, does that mean pension as well? And when they say for employees, are they talking retirees as well? I don't know. Are they just talking benefits? We don't know. And that's why we have to kind of keep an eye on what they're doing right now. Currently, May the 1st, the mayor took this report, gave it to the city manager, and said, I want to report on this report. Well, that's what the city does. They're great for that. They like to do reports on reports. And they'll probably do another report on the reports. So they got 60 days to come up with a report. What it will say, I don't know, okay? But it's, according to the council motion, it says they want to be, I'm still trying to figure this out in English, will allow the mayor and the city council to be intentionally around the recommendations that require policy guidance. You tell me what that means. I can't figure it out. That's why I'm checking the agenda every week to see what's going on at City Hall, because I really don't know. It scares me when they don't speak in plain English. It really does. So, because I don't know what they're going to do. So, whatever. Next slide. So far, I wrote to the mayor on behalf of CMERA and said, look, you got this report. How are you going to address it? What are you going to do? How is this going to be held? Well, at least now we know it's gone to the city manager. Okay. I made a presentation along with some other of the members of the executive committee. We went down to city council and we explained to them, to remind them that, hey, city retirees have been here before. We have this collaborative settlement agreement. We've already given up, COLA benefits, death benefits, certain, hospital costs have gone up. A lot of things we are now paying for that we never did, 20, 25 years ago. So the report classifies the pension fund as an albatross upon the neck of the city, which to me means that I guess we are now we're classified from human beings to albatrosses. So, but that's how the report views us. That's how the business community has viewed us right now. We are a hindrance to their vision for the city. So we reminded council that we've already given up a lot of things, and we're not looking forward to giving up anything more. I also had a meeting with some of the executive committee members. We went down and talked to the director of retirement. We didn't come down there to be adversaries. We came down there to see what he knew about this future report, what are they doing, if anything, and obviously, and he works for the city, so he can't tell us everything he knows. He's got the mayor on one side and council on the other side and retirees on the other side. He's between the rock and the hard place sometimes. But at least I came away with the sense that at least he cares a little about us. And from what I understand, some of the previous people who worked in that position didn't. So we have some hope there that at least, and he knows what he's doing as far as the money is concerned. So hopefully there's some hope there. So we've had a couple of times, went down to City Hall, got to try out some new parking meters, and that was fun. I enjoyed that. I used to work in parking, just so you know. But so in the meantime, we're kind of monitoring what's going on at City Hall. We're waiting to see what the city manager does, if anything. But she may or may not make many announcements because she doesn't have to, because she's doing this report. So we kind of have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully, it wouldn't hurt. We might consider, contacting her and say, hey, if you want some input from retirees, let us know. We'll be glad to give them to you. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, it might be an attempt. We don't know what they're going to do. That's the biggest problem. We just don't know. Okay? So whatever. Next slide. So what should you do? Well, right now, you can read the report. It's posted on our website. If you want to take a look at the whole thing, it's 72 pages. And not all of it has to do with the pension, but those obviously that's the ones that we are most interested in. So we're also monitoring the news reports. The Enquirer has promised to come out with some articles about they're going to do their investigation. Whenever the newspaper decides they're going to investigate something, you have no idea what they're going to come up with. And look for information on our website. If we get something, we'll try to post it to let people know. And if necessary, if we do need to call people to come down and say, hey, we need to remind council members that we are human beings, that we are not albatrosses, that we have, we have livelihoods. We spend our time with the city. We earned our pension. We earned our benefits, and we deserve what we earn. So that's a little bit about the futures report, and maybe it's a little bit more, but I think it's, in 6 months it may blow over. We don't know, but we can't just stand here and say, just don't worry about it, because that's when you have to start worrying about things. So, okay, we're going to open now for questions, comments, opinions. I have one question. How many, as far as getting emails from CMERA, do people here, if we have your address, email address, are you getting email notices from us? No. Just raise your hand so I have a rough idea how many here. Let's say no. Let's say, so we're not getting, I would say 60% we're not getting emails to. Okay. Yeah, I'm not talking about the group chat. Come on. Not the group chat thing, that's a separate thing. But just like, let's say if we wanted to announce that, hey, we'd like to have you go down to City Hall tomorrow to talk about something. A month?
There actually has not been a well-defined program to do that, and I think that's one of the things you and I have talked about that we're working on. So
there's an email with your statement.
Well, some of the things that my presentation to the city council was posted on the CMERA website. My monthly chronicle was posted on the website. I'm just trying to get a feel, because I noticed I've been talking to a couple of people who said they're not getting emails, and we want to try to at least, whether or not you do with what they call the chat back and forth, but we do want to make sure that we can get a hold of people through an email to let them know about certain things. Yes.
Is it possible to send out a test email and ask for responses so that you can assess how many people are actually receiving it? Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'm asking, is it possible for you to send out one in the form of a test and ask for responses so that you can kind of get an idea of how many people are actually receiving it?
We should be able to do that.
sure.
That's part of the problem with having a volunteer group, is that we have to answer, we should and maybe and we'll try, because no one's an expert at this stuff. But it's a good idea, certainly, and I think we will talk about it and try to get that done, yes.
So I did receive 2 emails from CMERA since October 8th, 23. Is that how many would have come out?
Possibly.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, anything else on any other topic and so forth? But yes. Let's wait.
I'm just a little surprised that we're going around this again. Doesn't our CSA have a legal requirement to the city that they just can't decide to do whatever the hell they want to do?
Sure. That makes 2 of us who are a little bit surprised. That's why it's a little.
I mean, did Judge Barrett eventually retire and he's no longer involved with this, or is he
No.
still? Okay. So who would basically hold the city's feet to the fire to make them accountable for the legal document that they're legally responsible for?
At some point, someone would have to make file a motion. One of the attorneys for one or both parties would have to go to the judge and say, here's an issue, we need your ruling. I would think Bill may be better advised on that, but
The CSA, under the supervision of Federal Judge Barrett, in my opinion, supersedes anything that the city might try to do. And it is a negotiation that resulted in the CSA, actives, retirees, and the city. So whatever is proposed for a change would have to go through that process. And one of the things that I was disappointed in the Futures Commission report is it didn't talk about that at all. There are a number of things I was disappointed in, but that was one of them. Another thing to keep in mind is we being the city, has talked to OPERS before. There were some issues several years ago with the Metropolitan Sewer District some wanted to turn that over to the county, and one of the issues was what happens to the employees and when they retire, that sort of thing. So there was some discussion with OPERS of taking care of that. At that time, OPERS wouldn't even discuss it unless the city paid off the unfunded liability. Not 84%, 100%, and that would be about $830 million right now. The other thing to keep in mind with OPERS, I don't know what it means to move CRS over to OPERS. They have a different pension benefit structure. If you look on the OPERS website, it says specifically, we are not obligated by law to provide health care benefits. And for any of you who know about OPERS, the way they do it is they give you a check in an HRA and you buy your own. So if you want more than what that check buys, you're paying for it. One of the benefits of, you talked about this before, about the recent negotiations that resulted in the funding policy for our healthcare trust, the 115 trust. One of the benefits of having that done now is it's cemented in that CSA. So the city can't just do away with it. It is in the CSA now, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to get that done before this Futures Commission report came out. I was interviewed by the Futures Commission, as was the retirement director at the time. We spent approximately an hour with them. They asked, what about merging with OPERS? I explained to them what I just explained to you. We've tried that before. It's not likely to happen unless the city writes an $800 million check. There's some discussion in the Futures Commission report about suspending our COLA, simple COLA. I explained to them that we ran numbers at the time that the CSA was being negotiated, took the average retiree benefit and ran it for 25, 30 years, the simple COLA versus the compound COLA. Retirees gave up tens of thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands of dollars. I can remember one of the scenarios that I ran at the time. I think it was $80,000 if somebody, was going to receive benefits for 25, 30 years. So it's a lot of money that retirees already gave up. Let's see what else is out there. One of the things that that they asked about was transferring money from the healthcare trust to the pension trust. Healthcare trust is more than fully funded. Pension trust is not. I explained to them that that's illegal. The reason that the trust was set up under IRS rules, laws, not just rules, you can't transfer money out. I said, our law department will even give you that opinion. So what's in the Futures Commission report? Hey, take a look at transferring money out of the healthcare trust and putting it into the pension trust. You can't do it. So one of my disappointments in the Futures Commission report with regard to the pension system, CRS, is they spent an hour with us. I asked the retirement director if there was any other discussion that was had. He said, well, there were some questions that were asked of him, but nothing that he knew about that the Futures Commission spent any more serious time than that. So it's a little bit of a disappointment. The albatross metaphor is interesting to me because it's misplaced. If you look at the poetry, the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, where that is brought up, the reason that the mariner wore the dead albatross around his neck is because he killed the albatross. On this boat where they were, everything was going fine. He kills the albatross, everything goes to hell for the ship. So they punish him by putting the dead albatross around his neck. So if you want to kill CRS, I guess you get an albatross put around your neck. So the metaphor is very odd to me. But anyway, that's just a comment that I had. Another thing to keep in mind is the retirement board just had a fiduciary audit done. And a fiduciary audit is not a financial audit. A fiduciary audit, really we're asking, compared to other systems and compared to current standards, where are we? Where is our retirement board? Are we doing the right thing? They came back and said we are doing the right thing. The retirement board is operating well. The retirement department is operating well. Now, they do have some recommendations that we are in the process of implementing, but generally speaking, CRS is doing well. It's run well. So there's no reason to move it to OPERS because something is failing. It's not failing from an operations viewpoint from what the board does. What the board did last week at its meeting is we passed a motion to ask the city manager to include the retirement board in any negotiations or any part of developing this report so that we may be included. That doesn't mean that the city manager has to do it, but the board is on record as wanting to be included in all that. I think that's all I have, and I hope that helps to clarify things.
It does, Bill. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I will sleep a little easier tonight knowing that at least the city manager may reach out to the retirement board for some input before they make their recommendations.
We've asked, it remains to be seen.
Will there be any legal repercussions for the city if they try to screw us over?
If they try to, yes, I mean, you would go to the judge and say the city is doing this it hasn't been negotiated, and the judge could stop it. And Judge Barrett, he is retired, sort of semi-retired as federal judges do, but he's still the judge in charge of this.
That would help. I'm interested in knowing what the tax abatement practices have, what effect that has had on the annual revenue for the city. Because a lot of this started, as you remember, Bill, I worked in this for many years, have the scars to prove it. And this started in early 2000 with this tax abatement piece. And it's grown into something that I don't think is appropriate. So what has the effect been on the revenue base for the city?
Well, I don't know the specific impact, and you would have to ask the city finance people about that. I haven't been in that role for a long period of time, but there is an impact, and to your point, it's gone over the years from something that developers applied for to something that was automatic, really. So that's out there. So as I said, I can't really give you an answer on that.
I understand, but I have...
But you have a good point.
I do, don't I? But I also know that, just to give an example of that medical complex that went up in Madisonville,
MedPace.
the $373 million worth of TIF and tax abatement over the 10-year period, 10 to 15 years. Now, that's a lot of money.
Well, the assumption, of course, with tax abatements is you wouldn't have had the development without the tax abatement. Now, you can argue whether that is true or not, but the response to your question from a developer or some folks in the city would be, well, you wouldn't have these jobs that are generating income tax if we haven't given the tax abatement. That would be their response.
Well, I understand, but without the ability to apply for this and to analyze these deals, it was just an automatic. When we were doing an extensive analysis on these types of deals, the profit was 35 to 40% in these deals.
Yes.
So I think that there's a real basis here to get some decent numbers on what the city has actually put into this in real dollars over this 10 to 15 year period.
Yeah, it would be something to ask the finance department of the city. Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
It appears to me that we have at least a couple of things that hurt our retirement. First of all, the city wants to privatize all these things, which we lose the employees that are supporting our retirement. And do you have any idea over the years, like how many employees we had, say, 15 years ago, compared to how many employees they have now working that are supporting our retirement?
I don't have any numbers. I didn't, when we were talking to the retirement director, it was about 2 weeks ago, I guess, we mentioned, obviously there's fewer employees now than there were, 20 years ago or so, but he said recently the number of employees employees have gone up a little bit. So he saw that as a positive. Now, it's not nowhere near where it was, but at least it's kind of that downward trend at least has leveled off and maybe ticking up a little bit. So, yeah. But every new employee and every employee who works in the city who pays earnings tax, is good. But,
and the other thing, that collaborative agreement said the city had to start putting in their portion.
Yeah.
Are they doing that?
No.
And
well, I mean,
they're putting in 16.75.
When you say their portion, the collaborative agreement, as I understand it, calls for a minimum annual payment. I think it's like 16-something%.
Yeah.
Okay. In the language says, 16.75% or 16 point something, or the actual, was it the amount required by an actuary, someone who studies the, so they put in that, they're supposed to put in the higher amount if it's necessary. If the actuary says, yes, you need to put more money in. Now, they have been putting in their minimum for the last 8 years or so. And last year, they did increase it by, was it 0.5% or something? They went up to 17-something%, but they're still not putting in the amount that they should according to the actuary.
Okay, and then when our investments are really doing well, they feel like they don't have to put as much in. And now when it's starting to hurt again, we're in trouble again.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
They put
but
the
I mean,
minimum amount in when our funds are doing well.
Well, the city council has to make budget decisions and, based on what they feel is the best for the city. Unfortunately, it's not always best for retirees. And but yes, they are not putting in the amount that they should. And that's still one of the issues that is, before Judge Barrett to say, okay, now how are we going to address this? How are we going to make it whole? And it has to be whole by, 2045. That's a requirement. Doesn't have to be whole tomorrow, but it has to be 100% funded by the year 2045. So they have time. And there's different ways they can do that. And it's been suggested by, okay, you put a little bit more this year, a little bit more. They're not going to come up with millions and millions of dollars all of a sudden to put it in the fund. But, could you increase it a little bit every year? That possibly, but that, I don't control the budget.
Okay, then all these agreements that we signed at the time we retired, saying we were going to get X amount of dollars or whatever, has that got anything that can be enforced on it?
From what I understand, no. I think the courts have already ruled that basically any promises the city made were promises, and they are worth maybe the price of paper in the pen that you sign, but that's about it. They were not guaranteed. There was no city ordinance that says the city guaranteed you this, and it was never done. So yeah, you can sign all the paper you want, but if there's no documents that says they have to, then no. I think we have one more over here. It's about 1:15, so I don't want
to. My concern is this federal judge, Barrett. Yes, he's semi-retired, but they give him cases and things. And I think he's going to probably continue on involved on any concerns about the retirement. Do you feel that he's been unfair to the retirees in favoring the city?
Unfair? No. Is it moving at a pace I personally would like? No. But I can't say it's unfair. And basically, a lot of I can't say his rulings have been in recent time, like the agreements that were just made recently are not something the judge says, this is what you're going to do. This is what the city's going to do. This is something that was negotiated between the parties. Since the judge wasn't going to do anything, the parties got together and say, hey, let's figure this out ourselves. Let's come up with some plan. And then we submit it to the judge and say, we agree upon this. And that's basically how these things were settled. They said, okay, this is how we're going to fund the health fund. This is what we're going to do to pay back the attorneys for this. This is what we're going to do with the point system. And the judge looked at it and said, okay, I approve. So he didn't really rule on any of that stuff. Basically everything has been a negotiation.
Even to see the agreement way back.
Well, I wasn't an active part of that negotiation, so I want to say, but I would say there was a lot more negotiation going on than the judge was saying. It wasn't a TV show where the judge says, this is how we're going to do it.
Why didn't he do that? Why didn't he put his foot down on this? Or why hasn't he? Our agreement.
I can't speak for the judge.
Would you like to find out why? I'm trying to.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, that's not, you know, trying to figure out how a judge is going to act in any particular case, I don't,
Well, we can file a complaint, you know. Somebody's done this, you know.
I don't know if you can file a complaint to saying, hey, we want to know why you're not doing anything.
Read up on it, you might find out.
Anything else? On the back.
Yes, maybe somebody has a better memory than me, but when this all came up, there were, well, when I retired in '99, everything was even. And what I see in, as far as employment numbers, what I think I remember seeing in the newspaper was there's like 4,200 of us, and there's 1,200 what they call employees, and then there's 1,000, can't remember the number, of part-time. And I don't know what that means. Does that mean these are third-party vendors that they've hired that sort of are employees, but they're not employees, so they're not in our system? And the other comment I wanted to make is, as the waterworks leave and become regional, won't we lose them from our retirement? And that, so we are getting even lower in numbers that are contributing to us. One other comment is, what can we do? So we have a piece of paper that has went from the, vice mayor saying he wants a recommendation from the different, wherever, I don't know if it's clear, like you said in his intent, he uses the word intent. So he sends it to the city manager. So how do we go about getting that through our Cincinnati, our retirement system board? And what do we get? Is there some way we can call down there? Doesn't work. Phones don't work anymore. After I visited the retirement board, I went down the way to visit the council people. I did get a list of phone numbers since I don't use the computer. And then I went out, and while I was in my car, since I had plenty of parking left time, I tried to call, and the numbers don't work. And when you go down to City Hall, you need to have an appointment to see the mayor. They have a section marked off from towards the Catholic Church, whatever. Anyway, what can we, is there something that we can do to make sure that this gets a review of not whatever, what is her name, Sharon Long, the city manager, chooses to pick for whatever answer she wants, to go back so that the city council just sees that? Is there something that we can do to not just sit around and wait, and then all of a sudden, you know, it just went through the, is there a highways department anymore? Or it went through, you know, something like that. Is there something that we can do to make sure that it goes back through the retirement system and actually gets a review based on, you know, the numbers that are there and the commitment that city council has made to paying that?
Well, I mean, there has been an offer, Bill mentioned, that the retirement, the Cincinnati retirement system has offered to speak to the mayor on, pension and benefit issues, as part of her review. So, and hopefully she will take advantage of that. Is there a guarantee? No. I mean, no, there is no guarantee per se. But I don't, and why the phones don't work, I don't know. Okay.
Is there a way that we can do something to get it out of this? It's the discretion of the city manager as to who is going to review it as a additional, to help city council make a good decision.
Well, ultimately, whatever the city manager does, the report will go back to city council. And at that point, then it becomes something that, either individually or collectively, we may be able to come in depending on what it says. Hopefully that the review of the issue related to pensions and benefits will resolve itself when they actually run the numbers and figure out that it's not going to work, But guaranteed, no, there's no guarantees. This is the city of Cincinnati.
Chuck,
Yeah.
it's 11:25 and we only have the church till 11:30.
How about 10:30?
I think that's,
Yeah, I don't think that was right.
that's an
Oh,
hour
okay.
off,
That's
yeah.
right. All right. Well, that clock's off. Okay. All right. So with that, I would just want to remind everyone that we do have our next meeting Saturday, October the 12th here. Hopefully by the time we'll have some of these issues resolved. I thank you all for coming here today, and look forward to seeing you in October and so forth. So keep checking the website. We'll try to keep you advised. Thank you so much.